Resident Evil is a beloved video game series adored by many fans worldwide because it combines the elements of horror and thriller together with action to produce an immensely dark world filled with multiple storylines that occasionally do crossover. The main games are super memorable with characters like Leon and Claire, Chris and Jill, and most recently Ethan Winters, or Ethan Winters, depending on where you're from. But of course, there always comes a time where every single successful video game gets an extremely unneeded live-action adaptation. As a kid, I always used to get excited whenever a new video game adaptation got announced, but at some point, you come to accept that most of these adaptations are barely passable, and they don't try anything different. Resident Evil has had a difficult time getting on the big screen. From the early 2000s campy movies to a Netflix show that was so bad they killed it before a second season could even see the light of day. But there's one more live-action movie that had such little advertising that not even the most hardcore of Resident Evil fans cared about its existence. Having a small rollout is usually a very bad sign for movies because it means that the studio behind it doesn't think it's good enough to advertise. And they know that they're probably gonna lose a lot of money on it, so they just start cutting their losses in order to minimize that. Resident Evil: Welcome to Raccoon City is certainly one of the movies of all time. Not only is it a live-action adaptation of a video game, it is also a reboot of a live-action adaptation to a video game. My biggest issue with this movie is how it includes too many characters from the games. It's like Sony wanted to make an Avengers movie without any of the prior build-up. And I would sympathize if they were trying to do fan service instead, by including everyone's favorite characters from the games. But that's not why they did it. Keep in mind that video game movies like these always have two audiences: people who are fans of the games and people who have never even heard about the games. Besides that, the entire reboot is very much a narrative mess. The writers tried to mix Resident Evil 1 and 2 together, but without any of the major plot lines. So no Tyrant and no Mr. X. They also switched around a lot of the character arcs. Like, instead of Leon being the one who fights a mutated Dr. Birkin, it's now Chris. And instead of Leon helping Claire and Sherry get on the train, it is also Chris. And as for what Leon does in this movie, he doesn't do much. He's only a placeholder to include more characters from the games. But hold on, the writers did give him a genius backstory, which has to do with Leon coming from a rich family and failing the police academy, all because he accidentally shot his partner in the ass and then got downgraded to Raccoon City. Okay. Combining the narrative of the first two games in one movie doesn't even sound like that bad of an idea, but then you come to realize that they don't even take place at the same time. It would have made more sense if they combined Resident Evil 2 and 3 together, because they do take place really closely to each other. And even if we were to give the studio the benefit of the doubt and say that they needed to include the events of the Spencer Mansion to build up Jill Valentine's backstory, because she is a reoccurring character in the third game, that argument would immediately fall flat, because Jill in this movie had such a small role that you could count her screen time on your hands. She's just another throwaway character that is given so little. She's just another throwaway character that is given so little to work with whenever the writers actually remember that they have to include her in the movie. Now, I'm not a very uptight person, and I really could care less if a movie has a lot of swearing in it, let alone if somebody swears a lot in general. My favorite video game character is Ellie from The Last of Us.
Fuck me. Who the fuck? Motherfucker!
But the dialogue for this movie is so abhorrent that every second of every minute, there's a fuck being thrown around.
The year of his death in what the fuck are you doing here, Leon?
So I've been talking to this guy in a chat room.
What the fuck's a chat room?
It's a place on the internet where people chat.
Where the hell Bravo team is and what the fuck all those alarms are about. You got me? Fuck me.
Fucking boy band wannabe. No fucking way.
Jesus Christ. Hey, whoa. It's kind of impressive, but also what the fuck?
But bad writing doesn't just end with the dialogue. It also carries on to the characterization, resulting in plot holes like how Wesker over here doesn't know who he betrayed all of his friends and his squad for. He just does it, contrary to Wesker in the games, who was always a double agent and always knew that he was working for the Umbrella Corporation. But here he's just like, town's blowing up and my squad that I've been with for years, yeah, it's whatever, really. And as I've mentioned earlier, the complete butchering of Leon's character in this movie.
You sent everyone into the briefing room, so here I am.
I didn't mean you, you moron. Not you, Leon, everyone else.
All around me are familiar faces.
Which resulted in so much unwarranted hate towards the actor that played Leon, Ivan Jogia. I'm definitely butchering that, by the way. He deactivated all of his social media for a while, which just sucks. Nobody should have to go through all of that unneeded backlash for some role that they had very minimal to no input in the way it was written whatsoever. It's also worth mentioning that Ivan is now back on social media, mostly on TikTok, where he makes videos. And I think that after snooping around some of Avon's posts and seeing that he did actually at some point rock a hairstyle really similar to Leon's, the makeup and styling department of this movie did not have a budget whatsoever to do anything which anyone could have guessed as soon as they saw the CGI dogs. And the old movies weren't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but at least they nailed down the looks pretty much. Jill Valentine looked exactly like her video game self, so did Leon, Wesker, and Chris, kind of. But like, could you honestly point out who here of those two is Chris and who's Wesker? No, you fucking can't. And I'm not gonna tell you which is which. If you've seen the movie, you'll know. But like, when I first saw this poster, they both have the same crew cut, right? It's a 50-50 is what I'm saying. It's 50-50 here. And for my last point, I wrote, why does this movie even exist? It's worse than a Wattpad fanfiction. And what I mean by that is that there's no point in making a live-action adaptation of a game or a book series when you hate or don't care for the material. Recently, an ex-writer on Netflix's Witcher series talked about this, saying that some of the writers hated the books and the games alike, which just completely baffles me. I get it, it's a job and money comes first. But even if you're not a fan of something when the project starts, you should at least study the source material, what came before you, and see if this is a story that you think is worth telling. And if it is, then great. You're a new fan who will align their goals with the general fandom. But if you still hate it, then just refuse the job. Because what will most definitely happen is that the project is going to crash and burn, resulting in angry fans and a loss of respect in the industry. And we've seen this happen with the Halo TV show, with the Uncharted movie, and with the entirety of Resident Evil on the big screen within the past decade. It's getting really silly. Who knows what adaptation is gonna get butchered next? The best thing that can happen is for studios to let the people who care and understand the value behind these stories and characters be in charge of these stories and characters. But that's just my 2 pence on the subject. Not really a big fan of video game live-action adaptations. I know the Sonic movies are good, please don't attack me for that. We all respect the Sonic movies, they're the best, okay? The one live-action adaptation that I'm really looking forward to is The Last of Us HBO series coming next year, 2023. I'm looking forward to that. Otherwise, it's not looking good. Also, no more putting pictures on the screen like last time. Now it's just, I can cross my hand over it. I don't have to add it in post or anything. I don't know. Like and subscribe and go hug your pet or something. I don't fucking know. Get out of here.